stop. If you are over 60 and you reach for a dress whenever you want to feel instantly put together, there is a very good chance the exact dress hanging in your closet right now, the one you reach for most, is quietly making your belly look bigger every single time you wear it, not because of your body, because of the dress. And by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly which one it is and exactly what to wear instead, starting with something you probably already own. A dress is supposed to be the easy choice, the one piece you can put on without assembling an entire outfit, without deciding on the right top, the right bottom, and the right layer to tie it all together. But for so many women over 60 carrying weight in the middle, dresses have quietly become the hardest category in the entire closet instead of the easiest one, and almost nobody stops to ask why that happened. Think about how you feel the moment you slip on the wrong dress. You catch your reflection walking past a shop window, or you see a photo from lunch with friends later that evening, and something about the shape just feels off, heavier, boxier, older than you actually feel inside. You tell yourself it must be the dress's fault, or your body's fault, or both, and you quietly retire it to the back of the closet without ever understanding what actually went wrong. I want you to know something right now before we go any further. It was never your body. It was almost always one specific design choice, hiding in plain sight, that nobody ever explained to you. I am going to walk you through 6 dress mistakes today, counting down from 6 to 1, the exact mistakes I see apple-shaped women over 60 make again and again, usually with their favorite, most expensive dresses, without ever realizing what is actually happening. And I want you to hear this clearly, because it matters more than anything else in this video. Your body has never been the problem. These are simple, learnable shapes and proportions, the same visual math a stylist uses every single day behind the scenes. And once you understand it, you will look at every single dress in your closet completely differently. I promise you this. The last mistake on this list, the number 1 dress detail, is the one almost nobody has ever explained to you properly, and it is the single biggest change you can make to how a dress fits your body. It costs nothing extra to apply. It does not require buying a completely new wardrobe or hiring a stylist. It simply requires knowing exactly what to look for the next time you are holding a dress on a hanger, deciding whether it deserves a spot in your closet at all. Once you know it, you will be able to spot it from across a store, long before you ever carry it into a fitting room. So stay with me all the way to the end, because I really do not want you to miss it. Let's start at the beginning. Number 6. Reaching for the loosest, most shapeless dress on the rack because you assume more fabric automatically means more forgiveness. This is one of the most common instincts I see in women shopping for a fuller midsection, and I understand completely why it feels like the safe choice. A shapeless dress feels like it asks nothing of you. No zipper fighting you at the hip, no fabric pulling anywhere uncomfortable, nothing clinging to a part of your body you would rather not think about. But here is what nobody tells you about a dress with zero structure. When a dress has no defined shoulder, no waist shaping, and no seam doing any actual work, all of that extra fabric has to fall somewhere on your body, and on an apple shape, it almost always falls and settles directly at the belly, the exact area you were hoping to minimize. Instead of skimming past your midsection, the fabric drapes and pools right there, adding visual volume on top of volume. What you want instead is a dress with just enough built-in structure to do some of the work for you. Look for a defined shoulder seam, a bit of shape through the bust, and a soft, gentle waist seam sitting higher on your torso rather than nothing at all. This kind of structure does not mean tight or restrictive. It means the dress has somewhere for the fabric to attach and release, instead of hanging loose from your shoulders like a tent with nowhere to go. A dress like this gives you definition exactly where you want it and lets everything below flow freely, which reads as intentional and elegant instead of shapeless and heavy. The next time you are shopping, hold a dress up and look at the shoulder line first. If there is nothing happening there at all, that is often your first clue the rest of the dress is going to work against you too. A simple test you can do at home works just as well as anything a store fitting room can offer. Put the dress on, then raise both arms straight out to your sides. If the entire dress swings and moves as one single shapeless piece of fabric with nothing anchoring it anywhere, that is a strong sign it has no real structure built in. A well-made dress, even a relaxed and comfortable one, should still hold some sense of its own shape when you move, rather than collapsing completely into a floating tent the moment your arms lift away from your body. But the very next mistake on this list is the complete opposite instinct. And it might surprise you just as much, so stay with me. Number 5. Swinging to the other extreme entirely and choosing a tight, clingy bodycon or slip-style dress made from thin, stretchy jersey fabric. I understand this instinct too, because after years of hiding in loose clothing, a fitted dress can feel like a bold, confident choice, a way of finally showing your shape instead of covering it. But thin, clingy jersey fabric has one job, and it does that job whether you want it to or not. It follows every single contour of your body exactly as it is, with no forgiveness anywhere, which means it clings just as closely to your midsection as it does to your shoulders or your hips. On an apple shape, that means the fabric maps out every soft curve of your stomach in precise detail, and there is nowhere for the eye to rest except directly on that outline. The fix here is not to abandon fitted dresses altogether. It is choosing the right kind of fitted. Look for a slightly heavier knit, something like a ponte knit, or a structured double knit rather than a thin, clingy jersey. These fabrics have a bit of body and weight to them, enough to smooth and hold their own shape slightly away from your skin instead of collapsing directly onto every curve underneath. A small amount of built-in structure, or even a light interior lining, can make an enormous difference here too, giving the fabric just enough substance to skim rather than cling. You still get the polish and confidence of a fitted silhouette, but without every single detail of your midsection being visible through the fabric under normal indoor lighting. There is also a simple styling trick worth knowing here, one that works even on a dress you already own and are not ready to give up. A slightly structured cardigan, an open blazer, or a lightweight duster coat worn over a clingy fitted dress adds one extra layer of visual structure right where the fabric underneath has none. It does not need to be heavy or bulky, just enough to break up that single unbroken clingy line and give the eye something else to focus on, besides the exact shape of your midsection underneath. Even a simple scarf draped loosely and asymmetrically down the front can interrupt that line just enough to soften the overall effect without adding any real bulk or warmth you did not want. And this next one might genuinely surprise you, because it goes against something almost every woman has been told her entire adult life. So stay with me for this next one. Number 4. Tying a wrap dress tightly at your natural waist. Assuming a wrap dress is automatically flattering for absolutely every single body type. This belief is everywhere, repeated in magazine after magazine for decades. Wrap dresses are supposedly the universal answer, the one style guaranteed to flatter any figure, because you can adjust exactly how tight or loose the tie sits. But here is the detail that gets left out of that advice entirely. If you tie that sash tightly right at your natural waist, and your natural waist happens to be the widest point of your torso, which is very common on an apple shape, you have essentially recreated the exact same problem as a belt cinched in the wrong place. The tie creates a hard, defined line directly across the area you were hoping to soften, and it pulls fabric taut on either side of that line, drawing attention exactly where you did not want it. Here is what actually works instead. Either tie the sash more loosely, letting it sit gently rather than cinching tightly, or better yet, look specifically for a faux wrap dress, one that has the wrap look built permanently into the seam rather than an actual tie you adjust yourself. A faux wrap construction typically places that seam a little higher closer to the underbust, which gives you all of the visual softness and flattering diagonal line of a wrap style without a single tight point sitting directly at your widest area. If you already own a true wrap dress and love it, try wrapping it just slightly higher than where the ties naturally want to sit, and tying it with a bit more ease rather than pulling it snug. That one small adjustment changes everything about how the dress actually behaves on your body. It is worth mentioning that the diagonal fold itself, the part of a wrap dress that crosses over your chest and down toward the opposite hip, is genuinely one of the most flattering lines in fashion, and there is no reason to give it up. The diagonal is doing real work for you, creating a natural vertical sweep across your torso instead of a static horizontal one. The tie placement is the only piece that needs adjusting. Keep the diagonal, loosen, or raise the tie, and you keep everything that made you fall in love with the style in the first place, without the one detail that was quietly working against you. We are now more than halfway through this list, and if a couple of these mistakes have already made you think of a specific dress hanging in your own closet, that is a good sign, not a bad one. It means you are starting to see exactly what I am about to show you for the rest of this video. This is not about everything you have gotten wrong for years, and it is certainly not about throwing out half your wardrobe. It is about a small handful of adjustments that most women were simply never taught, because nobody ever sat down and explained dress proportion the way we are doing right now. And remember, the biggest change on this entire list, the number one dress secret, is still coming, so do not go anywhere yet. Number 3. Choosing a bold, busy, all-over print that covers the entire dress from shoulder to hem with no visual break anywhere. A large, high-contrast pattern repeating continuously down the whole length of a dress does something very specific to the eye, and it has nothing to do with your body and everything to do with basic visual perception. Busy patterns chop the silhouette into visually competing sections instead of reading as one smooth line, and on a fuller midsection, that visual noise tends to concentrate exactly at the point where the fabric is stretched widest, which is usually the belly and hip area. Instead of the eye moving smoothly down your body in one graceful sweep, it gets interrupted again and again by pattern, and each interruption draws a little more attention to the width of that specific area. What works so much better is either a solid unbroken color, which reads as one long continuous column from shoulder to hem, or a smaller scale, low-contrast pattern where the colors blend gently into one another rather than competing sharply. Think of a soft, tonal texture or a subtle watercolor effect rather than a bold, geometric print with hard edges. If you do love a strong pattern and are not willing to give it up, look for a dress where the busiest part of the print is concentrated near the shoulders or the neckline, drawing the eye upward toward your face, while the fabric through the midsection and downward stays calmer and more solid. That kind of intentional placement uses pattern as a tool that works in your favor instead of against you. Seasonal florals deserve a special mention here because they are everywhere every spring and summer, and they are not automatically the enemy. The size of the individual flowers matters enormously. A print with small, densely packed flowers in blended, similar tones tends to read almost like a solid color from a normal viewing distance, while a print with a handful of large, high-contrast blooms scattered across the fabric creates the exact same chopped-up effect as a bold geometric pattern. Before buying a floral dress, take a step back from the mirror, further than you normally would in a fitting room, and see whether the print blurs into a soft overall texture or whether individual shapes still jump out sharply at that distance. But the next mistake is the one I see derail an otherwise perfectly good dress more often than almost anything else. So let's look at that next. Number 2. A straight, fitted sheath or column dress with absolutely no waist shaping anywhere, one continuous straight line running from the bust all the way down to the hem. On paper, a sleek column dress sounds elegant and modern, and on certain body types, it absolutely is. But without any shaping built into the design, the fabric has nowhere to go except settle directly against whatever is happening underneath it, which on an apple shape means it settles right against the belly. There is no seam, no release point, no soft transition anywhere to interrupt that straight vertical line, so your midsection ends up becoming the widest, most visually dominant part of the entire silhouette by default, simply because nothing else on the dress is competing for attention. The fix is choosing a fit and flare shape or a gentle A-line instead of a true column silhouette. A dress that stays fitted and structured through the bust and shoulders, then softly releases and flares outward starting somewhere above the natural waist, gives your midsection room to exist without becoming the star of the outline. The fitted portion up top provides definition and shape, so the dress never looks shapeless, while the flare below creates movement and softness exactly where a straight column would have clung tightly instead. This single structural change, fitted above, released below, is one of the most reliably flattering shapes across almost every apple-shaped body I have ever styled, regardless of height or overall size. If you already own a straight sheath dress that you are genuinely attached to, you are not necessarily starting from zero. A soft, unstructured cardigan or a lightweight jacket worn open over it can interrupt that single unbroken line just enough to soften the effect, similar to the layering trick we mentioned earlier with clingy fabric. But if you are shopping for something new, save yourself the compromise entirely and look for the fit and flare shape from the very beginning. It solves the problem before it ever exists, rather than asking you to manage it every time you get dressed. Now, before we get to the number one mistake on this entire list, I want to explain exactly why I asked you to wait for it, because it ties together every single detail we have already covered. The shoulder structure, the fabric weight, the wrap placement, the pattern scale, the fit and flare shape. Every one of those fixes becomes dramatically more effective once you understand this final piece. Once you see it, and I mean really see it, you will start noticing it instantly on every dress you try on for the rest of your life, on a hanger, before you even put it on. Number 1. Ignoring exactly where the flare of an A-line dress actually begins on your torso. This is the detail almost nobody ever explains, and it might be the single most important measurement on this entire list. More important than color, more important than print, more important than almost anything else we have talked about today. Most A-line dresses, even genuinely well-made ones, are built to start flaring outward right at the natural waist. That seems logical at first glance, since the natural waist is traditionally considered the narrowest point on a body. But on an apple shape, the natural waist is very often the widest point instead, which means a dress flaring from there is still cinching in tightly against your fullest area before it ever gets the chance to soften and release. What you want instead is a dress where the A-line flare begins higher, right underneath the bust, in what is called an empire silhouette. Here is exactly why this single detail changes everything. The fitted, structured portion of the dress sits entirely above your midsection, giving you real shape and definition through the bust and upper body, so you never look shapeless or undefined. Then, starting from that seam under the bust, the fabric is completely free to flow, swing, and drape outward for the entire remaining length of the dress, gliding over your belly and hips without a single tight or clinging point anywhere along the way. You get structure exactly where you want it, and complete, uninterrupted softness exactly where you need it most. Think about the difference this makes across an entire day of wearing the dress, not just the moment you first put it on in front of a mirror. A dress that flares from the natural waist is fighting your midsection the whole time you wear it, whether you are sitting down for a long lunch, standing for photographs, or simply moving through your afternoon. A dress that flares from underneath the bust never has that fight to begin with, because the structure was never placed against the part of your body that needed room to begin with. That is the difference between a dress you have to manage and a dress you can simply forget you are wearing in the best possible way. This works so much more powerfully than any of the other 5 fixes on this list because, just like we discussed with the seam placement on tops, it solves the actual root of the problem instead of managing the result after the fact. Choosing the right fabric weight, adjusting a wrap tie, picking a calmer print, these are all small workarounds that help an ordinary dress behave a little better on your body. Moving the flare point up to an empire seam changes where the entire structure of the dress is built in the first place, so you are no longer compensating every time you get dressed. You are simply choosing a dress that was never going to create the problem to begin with. And once you start looking for this specific seam placement, you will be able to spot it on a hanger in about 2 seconds. Long before you ever try the dress on, which saves you from bringing home yet another beautiful dress that photographs wonderfully on the model and disappoints you completely in your own mirror at home. I had a client, a warm, funny woman named Carol, who told me during our very first appointment that she had given up on dresses entirely. She said every single one she owned made her feel like she was wearing a costume of someone thinner, someone the dress was actually designed for, rather than something that was designed for her. We did not change her size that day, and we did not change her body. We changed exactly one measurement, moving her toward dresses with that empire seam sitting under the bust instead of at the natural waist, paired with a fit and flare shape, rather than a straight column, and a slightly heavier knit instead of a clingy jersey. She wore one of those dresses to a family wedding a few weeks later, and she told me afterward that 3 different people asked where she got it, and one cousin asked, almost accusingly, if she had lost weight. She had not lost a single pound. What had changed was the seam. She still tells that story at nearly every family gathering, and every single time, she laughs about how something so small could have made such a visible difference after years of assuming her body was simply the issue. That is the real power of understanding all 6 of these details together, rather than fixing just one and stopping there. Your body was never something that needed to be hidden or apologized for. The dresses hanging in most stores simply were not built with your proportions in mind, and now you know exactly what to look for on the hanger before you ever step into a fitting room again. None of this requires an entirely new wardrobe, a dramatic budget, or waiting for your body to change before you allow yourself to feel good in a dress. It requires looking at the dresses you already own with slightly different eyes, checking where the waist seam actually sits, feeling whether the fabric skims or clings, noticing whether a print is doing you a favor or working against you. Small, informed choices, made once at the moment of buying rather than fought with every single time you get dressed. That is the entire difference between a dress that wears you and a dress that finally lets you show up exactly as the confident, elegant woman you already are underneath it. The next time you find yourself standing in a fitting room, feeling that same familiar frustration we talked about at the very beginning, I want you to pause for 1 second before you decide the dress simply is not for you. Check the shoulder, feel the fabric, glance at where the seam actually falls. More often than not, you will find the real problem was never you at all. It was always something you now know exactly how to spot. And that single shift in perspective is worth far more than any single dress you will ever buy. If any part of this felt like it was speaking directly to a dress hanging in your own closet right now, I would love to know which mistake surprised you the most. Was it the wrap dress, the straight column silhouette, or that final detail about where the flare actually begins? Tell me in the comments below, because your story might be exactly what helps another woman watching this finally feel at home in a dress again, exactly as she is right now today.